Hi, my name's Charlie King. I'm with Heroic Fatherhood, and this is your Mentor's Moment. In today's question, a dad asks, my 13-year-old son is watching inappropriate YouTube videos. What should I do? This is a great question. It's a great question to ask. So I don't know the tenet of the inappropriate YouTube videos that your son is watching. I'm kind of guessing because you identified it as your son that they may be watching something of a sexual nature. You know, it's always possible that they've watched something else that's inappropriate inside your scope. It might be violence, it might be something else. But I'm going to guess, because I don't know the tenet, that that's probably what it is. And I really appreciate you asking this question. So when we have expectations about who we think our kids are, we have expectations of what's good behavior, we have expectations of who we want them to become in the world, and sometimes they do things that are outside of our expectations, or they do them in ways that like wasn't available to us when we were kids, or in ways that are just completely unexpected. So here's the thing. Our kids are going to experiment out in the world and try things out and see what they feel like. Now, this is how boys and girls kiss for the first time. This is how kids drive too fast sometimes. This is how kids skateboard down streets that are too steep sometimes. This is why kids ride their bicycles into lakes sometimes intentionally, or try to take a rolling desk chair and roll it down the driveway with a kid standing on top of it. As an adult, we know that's a bad idea. The reality, though, is that they're just experimenting. They're doing things that seem exciting or feel good. And if your son is watching YouTube videos of a sexual nature, it's probably because there's something that makes them feel good. So there's a couple things about that. If this is what's going on, it is totally normal. It is totally normal for a 13-year-old boy to be curious or getting interested in things that make his body feel different and his emerging sexual self. And clearly it's not flourished. He's only 13. He's probably just in the early parts of puberty, but it's not uncommon to have this happen. If it was when I was younger, it would have been a magazine, or it would have been something else. But it's not uncommon for kids to look at things that either excite them or challenge what's known or what's expected of them because they're trying things out in the world. Now, that being said, it's incredibly important that we be a part of that process, and that parental sort of stepping in is totally appropriate in a situation like this. My invitation for you is to not shut it down, is to not let it go on, but also not shut it down. Now, what do you mean? You said not to shut it down, but not to let it go on. So how do we do that? What I mean is to sit down and have a conversation with your son. Sit down and have a conversation with them about the fact that, hey, I noticed that you've been watching YouTube videos like this on the internet. It looks like you're interested in that right now. Okay, if that's what you're interested in, we should probably talk a little bit about that. Here's the thing is, and again, I would be having conversations about, here's what you need to know about pornography if that's what they're watching. If they're watching YouTube videos, which include pornography or videos on the internet of a sexual nature, is understanding what pornography is, understanding that it makes us feel different, it makes us feel good, it makes us feel queasy at the same time, it's exciting, it's very different, you're seeing naked bodies, all kinds of things that go along with that. But at the same time, it's incredibly important that they understand the context of pornography, the context of objectifying women, and that very often in these videos, the women are the less dominant, and very often these videos portray men dominating women. And that is incredibly dangerous if it's not at least qualified. And lastly, it's also important that you limit it. It's important that you limit it because extended pornography can have a huge impact on psyche. Study after study have shown that. Now, here's some ideas. So here at Heroic Fatherhood, we try and give you some insights, but then we try and give you some actionable skills. The actionable thing you can do is limit their access to YouTube. If they have a computer in their room at 13 years old, take it out of their room. Like, no joke, no kidding. It needs to be in a public space. Put it in your living room, put it in your kitchen, put it in some place where people are walking through all the time. We want them to know that at any time somebody could be walking in and seeing what they're doing. When you do that, you take away the secrecy of being able to watch things that nobody else knows you're watching. Same is true of the phone. Limit the phone to any space other than in a private room behind closed doors. No phones in the bathroom, no phones in their bedrooms, no phones, no phones in places where you're not going to be around them. And lastly, my other invitation for you is have a rule with their electronic devices that they don't clear their browser history. Don't clear their history. If they're clearing their history, it's because they don't want you to know something they've been looking at, and that's not okay. So that's the rules we have in our houses. No computers in the bedroom, no phones in the bedroom. None of that behind closed doors. Computers are always in a public space, and nobody clears their browser history. Lastly, another way that some folks do this is not what we do in our house, but I can see it totally works, is you can maybe have parental controls or even shut off the internet, but that only limits the time that they have access to it or don't have access to it. So I hope this was helpful. I know this is a challenging time, but I would be very careful of not shaming your son around what he's doing. He's experimenting, he's trying new things, he's checking stuff out, and it's a natural part of being a young man growing up and starting to understand his sexual self, and that's okay too, because we all are sexual beings. That being said, I love this question. Thank you so much for asking, and keep the questions coming. We're loving answering your questions. And if you're watching this video, how would you address this dad's issue? Put it in the comments below. And if you have your own question, do the same in the comments below. You might see your question answered here on Heroic Fatherhood's Mentors Moment. And lastly, we become better men by spending time with good men. And I'm really grateful that I got a chance to spend a few minutes with you today. My name's Charlie King. I'm with Heroic Fatherhood, and this has been your Mentors Moment.